Hello, welcome to my presentation on an overview of the World Bank Group Archives Access and Digitization Programs. My name is Jean Kramer-Smythe. The World Bank Group Archives has vast and valuable holdings on economic development. We want to unlock the power of this information, empower others, elevate the principles of openness and transparency, and really transform the way the world learns about development. So how do we do that? We know that arrangement and description can take content and transform it from being just legally open, like these unmarked cans. We know we could open these cans and find out what's inside each one, but instead we'd rather be technically open. We'd like each of our cans to show us what's inside and make it possible for anyone to discover that information easily. The Arrangement and Description Program began in 2002, and for the past 16 years, the World Bank Group Archives has been working to move the program forward. We went through a process of adopting the ISAD description standard. We beta tested the Access to Memory platform, switched over to the More Product, Less Process method, or MPLP for description. We continue to work hard to lower the barriers to the projects and ensure that we were able to add people to our teams and increase the skills of those teams. And finally, in 2015, the Access to Memory platform was launched and made us able to provide access to our digitization materials as well as a description of the assets of the archives. The Open Archives program is our current umbrella for all our current efforts to make the archival content of the World Bank Group Archives accessible. Working from the bottom up, the dark blue sections, Keep Records and Describe Records, are core functions of the archives. But in order for people to find that content and discover the content, if you look at the top of this layered diagram, you'll see on the left that we want to provide public search and discovery of our materials, as well as a way for people to access our information through requests, through an AI request form on the internet. Various parts of these rely on existing parts of our program. We catalog records in our documents and reports repository. We publish project folder lists to the operations portal. We publish our descriptions to the aforementioned Archives Holdings website, which is built on the Access to Memory platform. And then in response to the Access to Information requests, we declassify records, which then can be served to clients in the reading room here in Washington, D.C., and they can also be digitized and provided through the internet. The digitization program itself set out with two main goals. One was to support the Access to Information policy, and the other was to increase access to the World Bank's records, both for internal staff and the public. We worked toward our goals via two parallel work streams. On the one hand, we were working on actually digitizing analog materials, including streamlining the digitization program itself. And at the same time, we had a separate team that was working on rolling out our new description website for publishing archival description. Here you can see one of the earliest project records that we have digitized from 1946. One of our main goals is to ensure that what we digitize looks as similar to the original as possible, so those who are accessing our records remotely have the same experience as someone who can come to the Washington, D.C. and see them in person. The Archives Holdings website is where we publicly publish information about all the archival materials in our custody at the Archives Holdings worldbank.org website. It's built on the open source platform Access to Memory. Access to Memory was built for those using the ISAD, or International Standard for Archival Description. which is what we use here at the World Bank. Like most archival description standards, it is hierarchical. So here you see an example of the way that we have implemented our hierarchy. At the font level, we have, for example, the Office of the President. A lower level, the administrative subdivision, we use in this example for a specific president's records. And then below that, we have series representing the records that are the product of a single function. On this page, you can see that same hierarchy, only now this is in the Archives Holdings website. And the screen capture also shows the tree view that makes it easy for users to navigate through the hierarchy of the archival description, while still making it clear where they are in the tree at any time. At this point here on the example, we are in the series Statements, Speeches, and Interviews within the sous font for the records of President Robert S. McNamara within the font for records of the Office of the President. This is an example of an inventory list. It shows a sortable list of all the folders in a specific selected series. It includes our unique identifier, the folder title, date range, and disclosure status. If there is a View link shown in the PDF column, then the folder has been digitized and can be immediately downloaded. Finally, there's an option to add individual rows to a clipboard for reference. This is the inventory list we're seeing here is for the series we saw on the prior page, Statements, Speeches, and Interviews. This is one of our digitized pages within a single folder of that same series. We found it by looking for Message to Africa, which was taped by the Voice of Kenya. It shows that a suggested statement was to be read on the air was provided by McNamara's staff, and the highlighted area there was added by me, and you can see the link on the bottom that would link you directly to the folder where you can see these images. Here you can see the original suggested statement that was provided that has then been edited extensively in President McNamara's own hand. And then finally, you can see a clean copy of what we presume President McNamara read on air. The alternate way we provide access to and context for project-related archival records is leveraging the existing World Bank project portal. This shows a list of the archival folders available for the currently selected Rwanda Education Project, and these lists include both digitized and non-digitized folders. This has increased the opportunity for researchers to request specific folders and permits immediate download when the folders are digitized and linked here. So you can see in this example the bottom folder, Education Project 01, Rwanda, Credit 0567, etc. That one is in red, which indicates that one can click there and download the PDF to view the contents. And here is one of the pages from that digitized folder from 1987, discussing the first education project in Rwanda. Next, I want to give you a little glimpse behind the scenes of the work that went into our putting this all together. So in 2012, we had a number of challenges to solve when the digitization program and the archival description publishing revamp began. So we had existing publishing and synchronization of description processes that were manual and had to be applied across 3 separate platforms. As mentioned before, we use the ISADG description standard, which is hierarchical, and the existing external website and the new system that we were trying to migrate to all required manual implementation of this hierarchy. We had a number of paths that helped gain us our success. One is that we leveraged existing platforms here at the World Bank whenever possible. 2 of those examples in our case was the World Bank's existing document repository, referred to as WBDocs, and our archival catalog, which in the rest of this presentation will be referred to as either TRIM or HPRM. HPRM, or HP Records Manager, is the new upgraded version of TRIM that we are using now currently. We collaborated with teams from across the bank, including all those listed here. These teams collaborate with people working on all kinds of projects. And then finally, we also selected an internationally adopted open source platform for building this website to support the hierarchical description called Access to Memory, or ATOM, ATOM for short. So our goal was to figure out how to provide access to all our archival description when appropriate and to the digitized materials whenever possible with context. So you'll see here in the middle, access to memory on the top is that platform that gives access to the archival description. And then in the bottom, you see operations portal, which is where the information about projects is provided to the public. So we had archival description stored in that TRIM system, and we export one set of data for the Access to Memory website, which includes all the archival description as well as any links to digitized materials. And then we also had a separate data export we created going to the operations portal. In this case, it was lists of folders that belong to specific project IDs. And whenever possible, again, we provided links to download PDFs that had already been digitized immediately. They both link back to a public bank repository for public content that has been published. So Access to Memory, as I mentioned, is an open source platform. It was developed with guidance from the International Council on Archives, and it follows that international archival standard, ISAD-G. Originally, seed funding was provided to this project by the World Bank Group Archives. This is the deployed architecture for the Access to Memory platform. I'm not going to dig into too much detail here other than to explain that the servers that the World Bank Archivist works in to verify that content has imported in appropriately and that everything looks right. Once that has been validated, we push that content to a public site, a public read-only instance of Access to Memory, and that's the version that the public accesses. So we have a very separate modular approach so that the public can't, there's not even any way to update the content on that site, and so we have a lot of control over that. So this diagram gives you the big picture of how we developed our digitization program. So the yellow boxes, archival description, and A to I, which stands for access to information, review of archival materials, those two activities already existed before we began to digitize records. All of the orange in the center were the new steps that we were going to need to do in order to perform our digitization. The gray archival materials and declassified documents obviously already existed. We had the ability for people to come and review materials in our reading room in that white box in the Archives of Development Reading Room in Washington, D.C. We have our TRIM system, which had all of the finding aids and metadata, all the description already in there. And then all the green boxes at the top are the ways that we interface with the public. So on the right, we have the Access to Information request, which is on a public website. Those requests come into the archivists doing the reviews. And then on the left, we have, again, that Archives Holdings website based on Access to Memory and the project portal. Both of them, again, point to the digitized materials. And so I'm going to go through details of this middle orange section in the next slides. So as you can see here, there's many steps to getting something digitized. A lot of times people say, why don't you just scan everything? And clearly there's a lot more steps than that. So we make sure that we review everything before we scan it. We currently are only digitizing materials that have been disclosed to the public. This is Occasionally there are exceptions to this when we need to scan something for our own internal use or to share with someone internally. But generally for the digitization program as it stands, we're scanning things that have already gone through that review process. After it's been reviewed, we do a pre-scanning condition assessment to document the state of the records, what's torn, how many staples, if anything has any issues with it. Then we do the scanning. The scanning is on a sheet bed scanner, one page at a time, scanned to TIFF. Then we do a post-scanning condition assessment to make sure that we haven't harmed the records and to document any issues. We do document assembly, which I'll go into more detail in a little bit. And then we upload to that public document repository and add that link that we need back into the TRIM catalog so it can be pushed out both to access to memory and to the Ops portal, project portal. We follow a number of digitization standards that we set up ourselves, but we base them on best practices. We use high resolution full color TIFFs as our digital master. Again, we scan on a flatbed scanner, no sheet feeders. These are delicate materials, a lot of onion skin, things that can rip easily. And we do those condition assessments before and after. And then for our PDF, we make sure we preserve the original order of the pages. We want to apply optical character recognition, or OCR, to the documents to make them searchable. We do compression for the version that we upload to the external web so that it can improve the download speed. And we make sure we have a standard cover sheet on every PDF, which shows you the fact that it's come from the World Bank Group Archives, that it has been disclosed, and we also populate PDF properties in the file itself, so a title and some copyright information, things like that. So I'm going to zoom out here on that document assembly step. So this is the same list of steps I showed earlier. And this is what's under the covers when we say document assembly. We take all of the TIFFs, we combine them together along with a cover sheet to make a PDF. Someone then goes through and crops the individual images to take out all the extra white space. And at the same time, they perform a quality assessment step to make sure that there isn't anything missing from the original folder. They go page by page to match them. We do a very small amount of redaction. The only times we do redaction is if there is personal information that is generally on the cover of the folder that's been placed there through our archival process. If someone requests something, it may have, for example, my name on a sticker on the cover of the folder, and that's not something we want in the permanent version. So in that case, we'll cover it with a gray box, and we have an explanation on the website explaining what that might be covering. We create that PDF metadata that I mentioned with the title and copyright information. We do that OCR and compress the PDFs, upload it, the copy, that compressed OCR'd PDF with all its metadata in it, up to our document repository in WB Docs. And then we transfer a master copy to storage. So that's the uncompressed large PDF to storage. Currently, this is all manually being done, but these three steps in the middle are in the process of being automated. So this will mean that they'll get through their cropping and QA and redaction. They'll be able to basically add a line of metadata into a spreadsheet, put the PDF in a folder, and then on a regular basis, nightly or weekly, a procedure will go through and do all of the steps here in yellow, and we will end up with all of our content up in that document repository and published online. The great thing here is whatever we automate leaves all the work that needs to be done by a person. They can now do other things. They can scan more materials, and that should increase our productivity. When we were prioritizing the original pilot, we decided to use the papers of President Robert McNamara. We did this for a number of reasons. One is that there's significant interest from researchers. This is a very popular request. And also we knew that most of the records had already been reviewed for disclosure. We had about 40 linear feet already disclosed, so we knew we had a lot to work with right off the bat. As part of our ongoing digitization program, our prioritization is driven by requests. So for example, when individuals submit an access to information request for project-related records, those, once they're reviewed and cleared, go into the pipeline to be scanned. We also have photographs from an external affairs team that a very rich collection that stretches across many, many different countries. And so we've been working our way through that photograph collection to be able to soon make it available for others to use. Through early August, we have digitized over 4,000 folders. That's about 175 linear feet, which is available on the Archives Holdings website, surfaced in the context of our archival description, and an additional 225 linear feet show up in that project portal, akin to the example we showed you of the Rwanda Education Project. In terms of lessons learned, teamwork and automation are the two big pieces of this. We had to collaborate with all those different teams, many of them within the institution, as well as reaching out to others outside the bank to learn about best practices. But that internal team was people within the archives team as well as people from other units in the bank. Again, that rendering team, they're the ones helping us automate those new steps in the steps in the middle of the process I showed you a few slides back. The WB Docs team to help us with the automation of uploading content to that repository. We were also early in the cycle for trying out the publishing platform for the public documents. The web program office, they're the ones who we had to get permission from in order to use a new platform that was different from the one they were rolling out for everybody else. OIS stands for Office of Information Security. World Bank's a very risk-averse environment, and so we needed to make sure that everything we did was safe. We also leveraged existing institutional systems. The best example there is WB Docs. We made incremental improvements to our systems and our workflows, so we improved, for example, the steps we went through for scanning, the way that we tracked that, the way we documented it within our team and communicated that information. And it's an evolving process. All of these things, as people have new ideas and better ideas, we tweak a little and make things more efficient. We automated the cover sheet production, for example, and we also improved our status tracking systems. Alignment with the World Bank Group Archives mission helped us gain support for our project across and outside our team. It was really important for us to share why we were trying to do these projects, why we wanted to create this website, why we wanted to start a digitization program, and we really were supporting key work and existing mission goals of the bank and of the archives. You can explore further the examples that I showed you throughout this presentation. If you want to visit the World Bank Group Archives homepage, there's links from there to many of the other aspects of our program. The Archives Holdings website, this is the one that's based on the Access to Memory platform, can be found at archivesholdings.worldbank.org. And the information about the Access to Memory open source platform, that you can find at accesstomemory.org. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today learning about all of this, and I'm definitely open to emailed questions in the future about this topic. Thanks so much.